Hello, English learners. Welcome back to English Practice with Julia. I'm Julia, your host for today, and I'm truly happy that you're here with me again. If this is your first time watching one of our lessons, I just want to say welcome. On this channel, we upload a new English learning video every single day, all designed to help you improve your English step by step, naturally, confidently, and effectively. In today's episode, we're going to focus on something that completely changed my own English journey, something that many learners struggle with, and something that can transform your fluency faster than you think. Today, I'm going to share with you how I improved my English listening in just 30 days. Yes, 30 days. And how you can do the same. This lesson is not just about listening passively. It's not just about playing English in the background and hoping your brain understands. No. Today we're going deeper than that. I'm going to walk you through the exact mindset, the daily routine, the small habits, and the practical listening exercises that helped me train my ears to understand real, natural English. We'll talk about podcasts, daily life conversations, shadowing practice, repetition, and how to stop feeling frustrated when native speakers talk too fast. I'll share real examples, natural sentences, and practice exercises that you can follow with me slowly, clearly, and comfortably. By the end of this video, you won't just understand what I did. You'll have a clear 30-day listening plan that you can start today. And if you stay with me until the end, I promise you'll feel more confident, more motivated, and more prepared to improve your English listening skills in a smart and structured way. Before we begin, if you enjoy learning English in a calm, supportive, and practical way, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily lessons. Now, take a deep breath. Relax your mind. Maybe grab a notebook if you'd like to write something down. And let's begin this journey together. Let me tell you exactly how I now improved my English listening in 30 days, and how you can too. When I first decided that I wanted to improve my English listening, I was honestly frustrated. I could read English quite well. I could write simple paragraphs. I even felt confident speaking slowly. But when I listened to native speakers, everything felt different. The words were faster. The sounds were connected. And sometimes I couldn't even recognize vocabulary that I already knew. Maybe you have felt the same way. Maybe you have studied English for months or even years, but when you listen to a podcast or a movie, it feels like people are speaking a completely different language, and that feeling can be discouraging. It can make you think that your English is not improving. But here is something very important that I realized. Listening is a skill, and like any skill, it can be trained step by step, day by day, with the right method and with patience. When I started my 30-day listening challenge, I didn't try to understand everything at once. That was my first mistake before. I used to press play on a long podcast episode and expect my brain to magically understand everything. And when I didn't, I felt disappointed. So this time, I changed my strategy. In the first week, I focused only on short audio, very short audio, 2 to 5 minutes, not more. and I chose topics related to daily life. Simple conversations about morning routines, grocery shopping, going to work, talking about hobbies. Nothing complicated, nothing academic, just natural. Everyday English. Let me give you an example. Imagine you are listening to someone say, I usually wake up around 7, grab a quick coffee, and head out the door by 8. The first time I heard sentences like this, I didn't clearly hear grab a. It sounded like one fast sound, almost like grab a, and that confused me. So what did I do? I listened again, slowly, carefully, and I paid attention to how the words connected. Grab a, grab a, grab a. I realized that native speakers connect words naturally. And if you don't train your ears to hear connected speech, you will always feel lost. Now let's do a small practice together. I will write a short sentence, and I want you to read it slowly in your mind. Then imagine how it would sound in natural speech. I'm going to pick it up later. When spoken naturally, it might sound like, I'm going to pick it up later. Notice how going to becomes gonna, and pick it up becomes pick it up. Everything connects. Everything flows. Pause for a moment. Read that sentence again, slowly. Now say it softly to yourself. I'm going to pick it up later. And then say it again. Naturally. I'm going to pick it up later. This small awareness changed everything for me because I stopped blaming my vocabulary and started training my ears. During the first week, my goal was simple. Listen, repeat, and notice patterns. Not understand every word, just notice patterns. Every morning. I spent 15 minutes listening to a short podcast episode, and I didn't multitask. I didn't check my phone. I didn't clean my room. I listened, fully focused. And that focus made a big difference. After listening once, I listened again, but this time, I paused after each sentence and tried to repeat it. Not perfectly, just naturally, copying the rhythm, the stress, the intonation. This technique is called shadowing, and it is powerful because it forces your brain to connect listening with speaking. And when you speak what you hear, your brain remembers the sounds better. Let's practice shadowing with a simple daily life. Acha, for example. I had a really busy day at work today, but it was productive. Pause for a second. Read it silently. Now say it slowly. I had a really busy day at work today, but it was productive. Now try saying it a little faster, more naturally. I had a really busy day at work today. Yeah, but it was productive. Feel the rhythm. Feel how day at work connects slightly. Day at work. That connection is normal. In my first week, I repeated sentences like this again and again, and something interesting happened after a few days. My brain started predicting what would come next. When I heard I had a really busy, my brain expected day because I had practiced similar sentences. This prediction skill is very important in listening. Listening is not only about hearing sounds, it is also about predicting meaning based on context, based on experience, based on patterns. That's why daily life content helped me so much, because the vocabulary repeated often. Wake up, get dressed, go to work, meet friends, cook dinner, relax in the evening. These phrases appear again and again, and repetition builds familiarity. In the second week, I increased the difficulty slightly, but only slightly. I chose podcasts that were still about daily life, but spoken at a natural speed without slowing down for learners. The first 2 days felt difficult. I won't lie. I felt like I was understanding only 60%, maybe even less. But instead of stopping, I changed how I listened. The first time, I listened without subtitles, just pure listening, even if I missed words. The second time, I listened again and wrote down phrases that I caught clearly. Not full sentences, just phrases like on my way, running late, catch up later. The third time, I checked the transcript and compared. And I noticed something important. I usually miss small words like a, to, of, for, not big vocabulary. And that showed me something powerful. My problem was not vocabulary knowledge. It was sound recognition. Let's try a small exercise together. I will write a short paragraph, and I want you to read it slowly. Then imagine how it sounds fast. Yesterday evening, I was on my way home when I realized I had forgotten my keys, and I called my sister and asked her to bring the spare key. Now, pause. Read it again, slowly. Now imagine it spoken naturally. Yesterday evening, I was on my way home when I realized I'd forgotten my keys. I called my sister and asked her to bring the spare key. Notice how sister and becomes sisterin, how I had becomes I'd. This is natural spoken English. During my 30 days, I trained myself not to panic when I didn't catch every word, because even native speakers don't focus on every single word. They focus on meaning. So I asked myself a new question while listening. Instead of asking, what did I miss? I asked, what is the main idea? That simple shift reduced my stress immediately. In the third week, I added a new habit. I listened to the same podcast episode for 3 days in a row. Yes, the same episode. Day 1, general listening. Day 2, detailed listening and shadowing. Day 3, relaxed listening while walking. Repetition made everything clearer. Sentences that sounded fast on day 1 felt slower on day 3. Not because the speaker changed, but because my brain adapted. Our brains are powerful, but they need repetition and patience. Now let's do another short practice together. I didn't expect it to be that complicated, but in the end, everything worked out fine. Read it slowly. Now say it naturally. I didn't expect it to be that complicated, but in the end, everything worked out fine. Feel the connection in worked out. Worked out. That blending is normal. As I continued my 30-day challenge, I also started thinking in English more often. When I walked outside, I described what I saw in simple English, in my mind. I'm walking down the street. It looks like it might rain. I should bring an umbrella next time. This habit strengthened my listening too, because when you think in English, you become more familiar with sentence structure. And that makes it easier to recognize those structures when you hear them. By the end of the first 3 weeks, I noticed something amazing. I wasn't translating in my head anymore. I was understanding directly, not every word, but the meaning, the emotion, the intention. And that is the real goal of listening. Not perfection, but understanding. If you are following along with me, I want you to remember this. Improvement does not come from one long study session. It comes from small, consistent. In daily practice, 15 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, focused listening, repetition, shadowing, and reflection. In the next part of our journey, I will share what I did in the final week, how I tested myself, how I tracked my progress, and how I built confidence to understand faster conversations. For now, take a deep breath. Think about your own listening habits and ask yourself honestly, are you listening actively or just passively? Because the difference between those two can completely change your results. In the final week of my 30-day listening journey, something shifted inside me. Not suddenly, not magically, but gradually. I began to feel less afraid of fast English, less nervous when someone spoke naturally, and more comfortable sitting with audio that used to overwhelm me. At the beginning of the month, if someone spoke quickly, my brain would freeze. I would miss one word, then miss the next, and suddenly I was completely lost. But by week 4, Chata had trained myself to stay calm, and that calmness changed everything. One of the most powerful habits I added in the last week was listening under slight pressure, not extreme pressure, just a little challenge. I chose podcast episodes that were 5 to 10 minutes long, and I gave myself a simple task. Listen once and immediately summarize what I understood out loud in simple English. The summary did not need to be perfect. It did not need to include every detail. I just needed to explain the main idea. For example, if I listened to a short episode about someone's busy morning, I would pause the audio, take a breath, and say something like, the speaker talked about waking up late, feeling stressed, skipping breakfast, and rushing to work. But in the end, everything was okay. This practice forced my brain to process meaning quickly, instead of focusing on missing vocabulary. Let's try something similar right now. Imagine you hear this short paragraph. This morning, I woke up earlier than usual because I had an important meeting. I reviewed my notes while drinking coffee, and even though I felt nervous at first, the meeting went better than I expected. Pause for a moment. Now, without looking at it again, try to summarize it in 1 or 2 sentences. Maybe you say, the speaker had an important meeting, felt nervous, but it went well. That's enough. That's real listening practice. Another habit that helped me during the last week was listening at different speeds. And this might surprise you. Sometimes I slowed the audio down to 0.9 speed. Not too slow, just slightly slower, so I could clearly hear no connected speech. Then I returned to normal speed. When I slowed it down, I focused on pronunciation, on small reductions like wanna, gonna, kinda, sorta. And when I returned to normal speed, my brain recognized them more easily. Let's practice with a natural sentence. I kind of feel like we should talk about it later. Slowly. I kind of feel like we should talk about it later. Naturally. I kind of feel like we should talk about it later. Notice how kind of becomes kinda and about it. It becomes about it, almost blending into one sound. If you train your ears to hear these reductions, listening becomes less mysterious. During the 4th week, I also began listening in different situations, not only sitting at my desk, but while walking, while cooking, while commuting. At first, I thought passive listening didn't help, but I discovered something important. Passive listening alone is not enough, but passive listening after active listening is powerful. If I had already studied an episode actively, repeated it, shadowed it, understood it, then listening to it casually later reinforced everything. It felt familiar, comfortable, and my brain absorbed it deeply. Another technique that improved my listening was focusing on intonation, not just words. English has music, rhythm, rising and falling tones, and those tones carry meaning. For example, listen to this sentence. You're coming tomorrow. If I say it with a rising tone at the end, you're coming tomorrow, it becomes a question. If I say it with a falling tone, you're coming tomorrow, it becomes a statement. When I started paying attention to this music of English, my listening improved dramatically because I could understand emotion and intention, even if I missed a word. Let's do a short listening awareness exercise. Read this sentence silently. I didn't say she stole the money. Now imagine how the meaning changes depending on which word is stressed. I didn't say she stole the money. Maybe someone else did. I didn't say she stole the money. Maybe I implied it. I didn't. Or say she stole the money. Maybe someone else stole it. I didn't say she stole the money. Maybe she borrowed it. Stress changes meaning. And training your ears to hear stress helps you understand conversations more clearly. In the final days of my challenge, I tested myself with something I used to avoid: unscripted conversation podcasts, where people speak naturally, interrupt each other, laugh, hesitate. The first time I tried this at the beginning of the month, I felt lost. But at the end of 30 days, I understood much more than I expected. Not 100%, but enough to follow the conversation. And that was a huge victory. I also tracked my progress in a very simple way. Every Sunday, I listened to the same short podcast episode, the exact same one. On day 1, I understood maybe 50%. On day 15, I understood 70%. On day 30, I understood almost everything. The audio didn't change. I changed. And that realization gave me confidence. Confidence is extremely important in listening because fear blocks comprehension. If you think, this is too fast, I can't understand, your brain becomes tense, and tension reduces focus. But if you think, it's okay, I don't need every word, I'll catch the main idea, your brain relaxes, and relaxed brains learn faster. Let's practice another real-life listening paragraph together. After finishing work, I decided to stop by the grocery store. I only needed a few things, but I ended up buying more than I planned. By the time I got home, I was tired but satisfied. Pause. Now, what is the main idea? Maybe you say, the speaker went shopping after work, bought more than expected, and felt tired but happy. That's listening comprehension. Notice how you don't need every detail to understand the story. In my final reflection after 30 days, I wrote something important in my notebook. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. I didn't study for 3 hours one day and then stop for a week. I practiced a little every day. 15 to minutes, 20 minutes, sometimes 30, but always consistent. And I treated listening like going to the gym. You don't become stronger after one workout. You become stronger after many small workouts, repeated regularly. If you want to improve your listening, don't wait for motivation. Build a routine. Choose one short podcast episode tomorrow. Listen actively. Repeat sentences. Notice connected speech. Summarize the main idea, and then listen again later in the day. Do this for 7 days, and you will already feel progress. Do it for 30 days, and you will surprise yourself. Before we continue deeper into practical daily listening routines, I want you to reflect for a moment. How often do you listen actively? Do you replay audio? Do you shadow? Do you summarize? Or do you just press play and hope improvement happens automatically? Be honest with yourself, because awareness is the first step toward change. In the next part, we will build a clear 30-day listening plan together. A day-by-day, simple, practical, and realistic, so that you don't just feel inspired, but truly prepared to take action. Now let's slow down for a moment. Take a deep breath and imagine that today is day 1 of your own 30-day listening journey. Not my journey anymore, but yours. If you truly want to improve your English listening in 30 days, you need structure. Not pressure, not stress, but structure. Something simple, realistic, and repeatable. So in this part, I'm going to walk you through exactly what I would do if I started again from zero. On day 1, I would not choose difficult material. I would not choose fast debates or complicated interviews. I would choose a short, clear podcast episode about daily life. Something between 3 and 5 minutes. The topic could be simple: a morning routine, a weekend trip, cooking dinner, meeting a friend. Nothing academic, nothing advanced. And before pressing play, I would set one clear intention. Today, I'm only listening for the general idea. That's it. When you remove the pressure of understanding every word, your brain relaxes, and relaxed brains understand more. So you press play, you listen once, fully focused, no phone, no multitasking, just listening. After the audio ends, pause and ask yourself, what was this about? Even if you understand only 50%, try to explain it in simple English. Out loud, you might say, the speaker talked about waking up late, missing the bus, and arriving at work. Tired. That's enough. Then, listen a second time. But this time, notice small details. Maybe you catch phrases like running behind schedule or grabbed a quick bite. Write those phrases down, not full sentences, just useful expressions. This is how day 1 looks. Simple, calm, focused. Now let's imagine day 2. On day 2, you listen to the same episode again. Yes, the same one. Repetition is not boring. Repetition builds familiarity. This time, after each sentence, you pause and repeat. Oh, it softly, copying the speaker's rhythm. Let's practice with a short example. I was running late, and so I skipped breakfast and rushed out the door. Pause. Say it slowly. I was running late, so I skipped breakfast and rushed out the door. Now say it more naturally. I was running late, so I skipped breakfast and rushed out the door. Feel how breakfast and connect slightly. Breakfastin'. When you repeat like this, you are training your ears and your mouth at the same time. On day 3, you listen again. But this time, You close your eyes while listening and visualize the situation. If the speaker says, I walked into a small coffee shop on the corner. Imagine that coffee shop, the smell of coffee, the sound of the door opening. Visualization strengthens comprehension because your brain connects language with images. Now let's move to week 2. In week 2, you slowly increase the difficulty, maybe 5 to 7 minutes of audio, spoken at natural speed. But your routine stays the same. First listening, general idea. Second listening, details. Third listening, shadowing. Then, summarize. Let's try a short practice paragraph together. Last weekend, I decided to clean my apartment. I started with the kitchen, washed the dishes, and organized the shelves. It took longer than I expected, but I felt accomplished when everything looked neat and tidy. Pause. Now, summarize it in one sentence. Maybe you say, the speaker cleaned their apartment and felt satisfied afterward. Good. Now let's focus on connected speech. I started with the kitchen. Naturally, I started with the kitchen. With thee often sounds like with thee, almost blending together. When you train your ears to hear these small connections, listening becomes clearer. In week 3, I recommend adding one challenging a day per week. Choose one slightly difficult podcast episode, maybe a casual conversation between two people. The goal is not to understand everything. The goal is to stay calm while listening to something challenging. When you miss a word, don't panic. Keep listening. Your brain can still understand the overall meaning. Let's practice mental calmness right now. Read this paragraph silently. Even though the weather forecast predicted sunshine, it started pouring halfway through our hike. Now we had to find shelter under a large tree and wait for the rain to stop. Now imagine you didn't catch the word forecast. Would you still understand the situation? Yes, because you hear predicted sunshine, started pouring, hike, find shelter. Your brain fills in the gaps. That's real listening. In week 4, you begin testing yourself. Listen once without replaying, and then immediately answer 3 questions. What was the topic? What problem happened? How did it end? These simple questions train your brain to focus on structure. Let's try one more practice paragraph. I had been thinking about changing my job for months, but I was afraid of taking risks. After talking to a close friend, I decided to apply for a new position. Surprisingly, I got the job. Pause. What was the topic? Changing jobs. What problem happened? Fear of risk. How did it end? Got the job. You see, listening becomes easier when you look for structure instead of individual words. Another powerful habit is listening to your own recorded voice. Yes, your own voice. Choose a short paragraph. Read it aloud. Record yourself. Then listen back. When you listen to your own pronunciation, you become more aware of English sounds, and that awareness improves listening. Comprehension too. Because speaking and listening are deeply connected. Let's do a quick speaking-listening practice. Say this sentence out loud. I'm not sure if I'll be able to make it tonight. Now listen carefully to yourself. Did you say able to clearly, or did it sound like ableta? In natural speech, able to often sounds like ableta. When you recognize these reductions in your own speech, you recognize them faster in others. During my 30-day journey, I also limited my content. Sources. I didn't jump from 10 different podcasts. I chose 2 or 3 consistent voices. This helped my brain adapt to their accents, their rhythm, their style. If you constantly change speakers, your brain must adjust again and again, which can slow progress. So choose wisely. Choose consistency. Let's pause for a moment. Ask yourself, if you started this 30-day plan tomorrow, could you commit to 20 minutes per day? Not 2 hours, just 20 minutes. 15 minutes active listening. 5 minutes summarizing or shadowing. That small daily effort can completely transform your listening ability. Remember, progress feels slow day by day, but dramatic month by month. By the end of my own 30 days, I realized something simple but powerful. Listening improved not because English became slower, but because my brain became faster at processing patterns. And your brain can do the same. In the next part, we will go even deeper into advanced listening techniques, how to handle different I accents, how to train for speed, and how to stop translating in your head completely. But for now, reflect on this plan. Imagine yourself following it and believe that improvement is possible because it truly is. Now I want to talk about something that many learners are afraid of. Accents. Maybe you understand one speaker very clearly, but when you hear someone else, everything feels unfamiliar again. Different pronunciation, different rhythm, different intonation, and suddenly your confidence drops. I experienced this too. At the beginning of my journey, I felt comfortable with one podcast host, but when I listened to someone from another country, even if they were speaking English fluently, I struggled. And that's completely normal because listening is not just about vocabulary. It's also about sound patterns. So during the final week of my 30-day challenge, I decided to gently introduce accent variety, but carefully, not all at once. I chose one new speaker, just one, and listened to short episodes from that speaker for several days in a row. The first day felt strange. Some vowels sounded different. Some consonants were softer. But by day 3, my brain began adjusting. Our brains are extremely adaptable, but they need exposure, consistent exposure. Let's do a small awareness exercise together. Read this sentence slowly. I thought about calling you, but I wasn't sure if you were available. Now imagine 2 different speakers saying it. One might pronounce thought very clearly. Another might make it softer, almost like thought. One might say wasn't very sharp. Another might reduce it slightly. The sentence is the same, but the sound texture changes. The more you expose yourself to different textures, the stronger your listening becomes. Another challenge many learners face is speed. You might understand English when it is spoken slowly, but when someone talks quickly, it feels impossible. Here's something important I learned. Speed feels fast mostly because of connected speech, not because of vocabulary difficulty. Native speakers don't say every word separately. They link, reduce, blend. For example, what are you going to do naturally? What you gonna do? Yeah, if you don't recognize whatcha as what are you, you feel lost. So I created a small daily habit. Every day, I chose one natural fast sentence and I slowed it down, analyzed it, and then practiced it at normal speed. Let's practice together. I don't know what you're talking about. Slow. I do not know what you are talking about. Natural. I don't know what you're talking about. Notice how talking becomes talking. How what you blends into whatcha. When you learn these patterns fast, English becomes predictable. Now I want you to imagine something. Imagine you are in a cafe. Two friends are talking at the next table. You can't catch every word, but you hear project, deadline, late, boss. Even without full comprehension, you understand they are talking about work, maybe stress, maybe pressure. Listening is about catching keywords and building meaning from context. During my 30 days, I trained myself to focus on content words first, nouns, verbs, adjectives, small. Your grammar words are important, but meaning often lives in the main words. Let's try another short practice paragraph. After months of saving money, she finally booked her dream vacation to Italy. She had always wanted to visit Rome and explore the historic streets. Pause. Even if you missed finally or historic, you still understand. Saving money, vacation, Italy, Rome, streets. Your brain builds the story. That's how listening works naturally. Another powerful technique I used was mental repetition. After listening to a sentence, instead of repeating it out loud immediately, I replayed it in my mind. For example, I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I heard it once, then closed my eyes and tried to replay the sound in my head. This strengthens auditory memory. Let's try it now. Read this sentence silently. I've been meaning to call you, but things have been hectic lately. Now close your eyes for a few seconds and replay it in your mind. Can you hear the rhythm? I've been meaning to call you, but things have been hectic lately. That mental replay trains your listening deeply. Now let's talk about translation. At the beginning of my journey, I translated everything into my native language, word by word. But translation slows. Listening down, because by the time you translate one sentence, the speaker is already on the next idea. So I trained myself to think in images, not translations. When I heard, she missed the train and had to wait for the next one, I imagined a train station, a clock, someone looking disappointed. Images are faster than translation. Let's practice this skill. Read this sentence. He dropped his phone on the floor and the screen cracked instantly. Don't translate it. Picture it. See the phone falling. Hear the sound. See the cracked screen. That visual thinking improves listening speed. On the last days of my 30-day challenge, I tested myself in a new way. I listened to a podcast episode only once and refused to replay it. Then I wrote a short paragraph about what I understood. It didn't matter if it was perfect. The goal was processing speed. If you want to challenge yourself, try this tomorrow. Choose a 5-minute episode. Listen once and immediately write or say 3 to 5 sentences about it. No replay. Just trust your brain. You might surprise yourself. Another habit that made a big difference was emotional engagement. If I felt bored, my listening was weaker. So I chose topics that interested me. Personal development, daily routines, habits, stories, real experiences. When you care about the topic, your focus increases automatically. Let's pause for a second. Think about topics you enjoy: travel, cooking, business, fitness, relationships. If you listen to content connected to your interests, improvement feels natural, not forced. By the end of the 30 days, I noticed that English no longer sounded like separate words. It sounded like flowing ideas. That transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it happens with daily contact. You don't need perfection. You need exposure, repetition, patience, and you need to trust the process. In the next part, we're going to combine everything into a realistic weekly schedule with daily listening exercises you can follow, including more guided practice paragraphs together. For now, take another deep breath. I'll reflect on what you've learned so far. And remember, listening is not a talent, it's a trained skill. Now let's bring everything together in a clear and realistic weekly rhythm, because improvement becomes powerful when your practice has structure, not randomness. Imagine this is your first full week of serious listening training. You are committed, but you are calm. You are not trying to become perfect in one day. You are building a habit. On Monday, your focus is clarity. You choose one short, a podcast episode, 5 minutes or less, about daily life. Maybe someone talking about their morning routine or how they prepare for an important day. You listen once, only for the general idea. Then you pause and ask yourself, what was this about? You don't overthink it. You simply answer in 1 or 2 sentences. Then you listen again. And this time, you pay attention to pronunciation, reductions, connected words. For example, I was supposed to wake up early, but I overslept. Naturally, I was supposed to wake up early, but I overslept. Notice how wake up becomes wake up, almost one sound. Now repeat it softly. I was supposed to wake up early, but I overslept. Again, more naturally. I was supposed to wake up early, but I overslept. Feel the rhythm. On Tuesday, your focus is shadowing. You take the same episode from Monday, and this time, you pause after each sentence and repeat it immediately. You copy the speed, the stress, the music of English. Let's practice with a short paragraph. After realizing I was late, I rushed through my morning routine. I skipped breakfast, grabbed my keys, and ran out the door. Pause. Now say it slowly. After realizing I was late, I rushed through my morning routine. I skipped breakfast, grabbed my keys, and ran out the door. Now say it more naturally. After realizing I was late, I rushed through my morning routine. I skipped breakfast, grabbed my keys, and ran out the door. Shadowing feels strange at first, but after a few days, your brain adjusts. On Wednesday, your focus is listening without fear. You choose a slightly faster episode, maybe 6 or 7 minutes. And your only goal is to stay calm, even when you miss words. Let's try something together. Although the presentation didn't go exactly as planned, I managed to answer most of the questions confidently. Maybe you miss exactly. Maybe you don't catch confidently, but you still understand presentation, questions, managed. Meaning is still there. Remind yourself, missing a word is normal. On Thursday, your focus is summarizing. You listen once, and immediately explain the story out loud. For example, the speaker talked about preparing for an important presentation, feeling nervous at first, but gaining confidence during the process. Even if your grammar isn't perfect, the act of summarizing strengthens listening comprehension. On Friday, your focus is repetition. You return to Monday's episode. Yes, the same one. And this time, you will notice something surprising. Sentences that felt fast on Monday feel slower now. Why? Because your brain has built familiarity. Repetition removes fear. Let's read another short paragraph together. I had been planning this trip for months, and when the day finally arrived, I couldn't believe it was happening. Everything felt exciting and a little overwhelming at the same time. Pause. Read it slowly. Now imagine hearing it quickly. I'd been planning this trip for months, and when the day finally arrived, I couldn't believe it was happening. Everything felt exciting and a little overwhelming at the same time. When you practice hearing these blends, listening becomes smoother. On Saturday, your focus is variety. You choose a different speaker, maybe a different accent, but only for a short time. You don't overwhelm yourself. You listen for patterns, not perfection. On Sunday, you reflect, you ask yourself, did I listen actively this week? Did I shadow? Did I summarize? Did I stay calm? Reflection builds awareness, and awareness builds improvement. Now I want to guide you through a longer listening practice paragraph, something that feels closer to natural storytelling. Listen with your eyes as you read. Last month, I decided to challenge myself by waking up an hour earlier every morning. At first, it was difficult, and I felt exhausted during the day. But after a week, my body adjusted, and I started using that extra hour to read, exercise, and plan my goals. Surprisingly, this small change made me feel more productive and focused. Pause. What was the main idea? The speaker changed their routine, struggled at first, adjusted, and felt more productive. Now focus on connected speech. Body adjusted. Body adjusted. Started using. Started using. English flows. Another exercise that improved my listening was predicting the next word. When I heard, at first, it was difficult. My brain expected something negative. Maybe I struggled, or I felt tired. Prediction makes listening active. Let's practice. I opened the door and was surprised to see pause. What do you expect next? A friend, a package, something unexpected. When you listen with prediction, you engage your brain fully. Now I want you to imagine yourself after 30 days. You sit down, you press play on a podcast episode, and instead of anxiety, you feel curiosity. Instead of thinking, this is too fast, you think, let's see what I can understand. That mindset shift is powerful because confidence changes performance. Remember, your goal is not to understand every single word. Your goal is to understand ideas, emotions, stories. Even native speakers don't focus on every word. They focus on meaning. Before we move into deeper guided listening exercises in the next section, I want you to do something simple tonight. Choose one short piece of audio. 5 minutes. Listen. Talk actively. Repeat one sentence. Summarize the idea. That's it. Small action. consistent action. That's how listening improves. In the next part, we will dive into longer real-life listening simulations together, where I guide you through story-based practice, step by step, helping you train your ears even more deeply. For now, trust your ability, and remember, progress is happening even when you don't feel it immediately. Now we are going to move into something deeper, something more immersive. Until now, we've talked about techniques, routines, weekly structure, but in this part, I want you to experience listening in a more realistic way, almost like you are inside a real-life situation. Because real improvement happens when you practice with context, with emotion, with story. So I'm going to guide you through longer listening style passages. And after each one, we'll slow down, reflect, and train your ears together. Take a comfortable breath, relax your shoulders, and let's begin. Imagine you are listening to this story. This morning started like any other day. I woke up when my alarm went off, but instead of getting up immediately, I stayed in bed for a few extra minutes. I checked my phone, scrolled through some messages, and slowly convinced myself to start the day. After making a quick cup of coffee, I looked out the window and realized it was raining heavily. That's when I remembered I had forgotten to bring my umbrella inside the night before. Pause for a moment. Now, without reading it again, what was the situation? The speaker woke up, stayed in bed, made coffee. It was raining, and they forgot their umbrella. That's enough. Now let's go deeper. Listen for emotional tone. Does the speaker sound stressed, excited, calm? It feels calm, reflective. Tone matters in listening. Now let's focus on connected speech. Instead of getting up, immediately, naturally. Instead, getting up immediately. Forgotten to bring my umbrella. Forgotten to bring my umbrella. These small connections are everywhere in spoken English. Let's move into a slightly more complex situation. Listen carefully. Later that afternoon, I had an important video call with a client. I had prepared my notes the night before, but I still felt slightly nervous. As the meeting began, my internet connection suddenly became unstable. For a few seconds, I couldn't hear anything clearly, and I worried that I had missed something important. Fortunately, the connection improved. And the rest of the meeting went smoothly. Pause. What happened? There was a meeting, internet problems, temporary worry. Now imagine hearing this quickly. I had prepared my notes the night before. I'd prepared my notes the night before. I couldn't hear anything clearly. I couldn't hear anything clearly. Notice how couldn't often sounds softer in natural speech. Listening improves when you learn to recognize contractions instantly. Couldn't, wouldn't, shouldn't. Let's practice recognition. I'll call you later. I've already finished. I'd never seen that before. Say them slowly. Now say them naturally. I'll call you later. I've already finished. I'd never seen that before. When these forms become automatic in your mind, listening becomes faster. Now let's simulate something even more real. A short conversational exchange. Speaker 1 says, "Hey, did you finish the report?" Speaker 2 responds, "Not yet. I've been working on it all morning, but I still need to double check a few numbers." Speaker 1 replies, "All right. Just send it over when you're done." Pause. What's happening? They're discussing work, a report, progress. Notice how natural speech might sound like. Did you finish the report? I've been working on it all morning. Send it over when you're done. If you train your ears to expect these reductions, conversations feel less overwhelming. Now I want to guide you through a longer storytelling practice, and I want you to imagine listening to it as audio, not reading. Take a slow breath. About a year ago, I decided to start learning something completely new. At first, I felt unsure and even a little intimidated. Everyone else seemed more experienced, and I worried that I wouldn't be able to keep up. But instead of giving up, I committed to practicing a little every day. Some days were frustrating, especially when progress felt slow. However, after a few months, I began to notice small improvements. What once felt impossible slowly became manageable. Pause. What is the deeper message? Commitment, patience, gradual improvement. Listening is not only about words, it's about recognizing themes. Now let's do something important. I want you to listen for transitions. At first, but instead, however. These transition words guide meaning. When you catch transitions, you understand structure. Let's practice catching transitions. Initially, I struggled to follow conversations. Nevertheless, and I continued listening daily. Eventually, my comprehension improved. Pause. Initially means at the beginning. Nevertheless shows contrast. Eventually shows time passing. Catching these markers makes listening easier. Now let's practice something that helped me stop translating completely. Chunk listening. Instead of hearing word by word, train yourself to hear phrases as units. For example, a little intimidated, not separate words, one idea. Keep up, 1 unit. Give up, 1 unit. These are chunks. Let's practice chunk. Awareness. I'm looking forward to the weekend. The chunk is looking forward to, not looking forward to separately. When you hear chunks automatically, listening speed increases naturally. Now imagine a real-life scenario. You're on public transportation. 2 people are talking behind you. You hear promotion, excited, moving to another city, new opportunity. You don't hear every detail, but you understand the situation. Someone got promoted, they're moving, they're excited. That's real comprehension. You don't need perfection, you need context awareness. In my final days of the 30-day challenge, I tested myself with longer audio, 10 to 12 minutes. At the beginning of the month, that would have felt overwhelming. But by then, my listening stamina had improved. Listening stamina is like muscle endurance. At first, 5 minutes feels tiring. After practice, 15 minutes feels normal. If you want to build stamina, gradually increase time. 5 minutes, then 7, then 10. Don't jump to 30 immediately. Now let's finish this part with one final guided listening story. On Sunday evening, I sat down to reflect on my week. I realized that although I hadn't achieved everything on my list, I had made meaningful progress. Instead of focusing on what I hadn't done, I chose to celebrate the small victories. That shift in mindset made me feel more motivated for the week ahead. Pause. Main idea. Reflection. Progress. Mindset shift. Motivation. Now focus on sound. hadn't achieved, hadn't achieved, focusing on what I hadn't done, focusing on what I hadn't done. English flows. It connects. And the more you expose yourself to that flow, the more natural it becomes. You might not feel dramatic improvement after one session, but day after day, your brain adapts just like mine did. In the next part, we're going to talk about common listening mistakes that slow down progress and how to correct them immediately. Because sometimes improvement is not about doing more. It's about avoiding the wrong habits. Take a slow breath and recognize how far you've come in this lesson already. Now I want to talk honestly about the mistakes that slowed me down at the beginning. Because sometimes improvement is not about adding new techniques. It's about removing the habits that block progress. When I tried to improve my listening, I made a very common mistake. I tried to understand every single word, every word. And when I missed one, I panicked. That panic created a chain reaction. I missed one word, then another, and suddenly I understood nothing. But here's the truth. Even native speakers don't consciously process every single word in a conversation. They process meaning, patterns, intention. So the first mistake to avoid is perfectionism. If your goal is 100% understanding, all the time, you will feel frustrated. Instead, aim for clarity of idea. Let's practice this mindset shift. Read this paragraph. During the conference, several speakers shared their experiences about building successful businesses. Some stories were inspiring, while others highlighted the challenges and failures behind the scenes. Imagine you missed the word conference. Could you still understand the situation? Yes. Speakers, experiences, businesses, inspiring, challenges. Your brain builds the picture from keywords. So stop chasing every word, chase the message. Another mistake I made was jumping between too many sources. One day I listened to one podcast, the next day a completely different accent, then a YouTube interview, then a movie. My brain, it never had time to adjust. Consistency builds familiarity. If you listen to the same voice for a week, your brain adapts to that rhythm, that pronunciation, that speed. Once adaptation happens, listening feels smoother. So choose 2 or 3 consistent sources and stay with them for at least 2 weeks. Another mistake: passive listening without intention. I used to play English audio in the background while doing other things, thinking it was enough. Background listening can help, but only. And after active listening means full focus, no scrolling, no multitasking. When you give your brain full attention, even for 15 minutes, the impact is powerful. Let's try a focused practice right now. Take a breath. Read this short paragraph slowly. After missing the bus, I decided to walk to work instead. Although it took longer, the fresh air helped clear my mind. Now close your eyes and replay it mentally. After missing the bus, I decided to walk to work instead, although it took longer. The fresh air helped clear my mind. That mental replay strengthens listening memory. Another mistake: translating word by word. When you translate in real time, your brain falls behind. Instead of translating, train yourself to attach images to phrases. Let's practice image thinking. She spilled coffee on her shirt right before the meeting. Don't translate. Picture it: coffee spilling. surprise, frustration. Images are faster than translation. Another problem many learners face is fear of fast speech, but speed is often an illusion. It feels fast because you are not yet familiar with reductions. For example, what do you want to do? Naturally. What do you want to do? If you don't recognize what do you as what do you feel lost. So instead of complaining about speed, study reductions. Here are a few common ones. Going to, gonna, want to, wanna, got to, gotta, let me, give me, gimme. Try repeating them slowly. Going to, gonna, wanna, got to, gotta. Now imagine hearing them in a sentence. I'm gonna call you later. She's got to finish her work. I want to try something new. When these forms become automatic in your mind, fast English, becomes less intimidating. Another mistake I made was avoiding difficult audio completely. If something felt hard, I skipped it. But controlled challenge is necessary. You don't jump into something impossible, but you also don't stay in comfort forever. Choose one slightly challenging episode each week, not to understand perfectly, but to stretch your listening ability. Stretching builds growth. Now let's practice controlled challenge together. Read this paragraph carefully. Despite facing unexpected obstacles, the team managed to complete the project on time. Their dedication and teamwork played a crucial role in overcoming the difficulties. Maybe crucial feels advanced. Maybe obstacles is unfamiliar. But you still understand the message. Project, obstacles, teamwork, success, that's enough. Another important correction I made was tracking my improvement realistically. Instead of asking, why am I not fluent yet? I asked, what can I understand today that I couldn't understand 2 weeks ago? Progress becomes visible when you compare yourself to your past, not to perfection. Let's do a small reflection exercise. Think about your listening 1 month ago. Could you understand short podcasts clearly? Can you now catch more connected speech? Can you follow ideas longer than before? Even small improvements matter. Another powerful technique is listening for emotion. When someone says, I can't believe this happened, the tone tells you everything. Surprise, maybe frustration. Even if you don't catch every word. Tone gives you clues. Let's try another example. I'm really proud of what we accomplished. Tone shows pride, satisfaction. Listening is not robotic, it's emotional. When you pay attention to emotion, comprehension improves naturally. Now I want you to imagine the difference between day 1 and day 30. On day 1, fast English feels overwhelming. On day 30, it feels challenging, but manageable. That's growth. Listening improvement is not dramatic like turning on a light switch. It's gradual, like the sun rising. I'm slowly, gently, but clearly. And if you stay consistent, that sunrise becomes brighter every day. In the next part, we will go even deeper into advanced listening simulations, longer stories, more natural flow, and stronger comprehension training. But before we move forward, take a moment to release perfectionism. You are training a skill. Skills grow with repetition, not pressure. Now we are going to stretch your listening ability even further, not with theory, not with explanation, but with deeper guided simulations. This part is about endurance. focus, and real comprehension under natural flow. Imagine you're listening to a real podcast episode around 8 or 10 minutes long, and you cannot pause every 10 seconds. You have to follow the story as it moves. So let's practice that feeling together. Take a slow breath, relax your mind, and read this as if you are hearing it in real time. 2 years ago, I made a decision that completely changed the direction of my life. At the time, I was working at a job that paid well but didn't inspire me. Every morning, I woke up feeling unmotivated, and by the end of each day, I felt mentally exhausted. One evening, after a long conversation with a close friend, I realized that I had been ignoring my true interests for too long. That conversation didn't magically solve everything, but it planted a seed in my mind. Over the next few weeks, I began researching new opportunities, updating my resume, and slowly building the confidence to make a change. The process wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt and uncertainty. However, looking back now, I can honestly say that taking that risk was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Pause. Without rereading it. What was the core story? A person felt unmotivated in their job, talked to a friend, decided to change, faced doubts, and eventually felt it was the right decision. That's full comprehension of a longer idea. Now let's break it down. Notice the transition words. At the time. One evening. Over the next few weeks. However. These transitions guide your understanding of time, and contrast. When listening, always catch time markers and contrast markers. They organize the story for you. Now let's practice stamina. Here's another longer paragraph. During the first month of my listening challenge, I often felt discouraged. Some days I understood almost everything and I felt proud of myself. Other days I struggled to follow even simple conversations. At first, those difficult days made me question my progress. But instead of giving up, I reminded myself that improvement is rarely linear. There will always be ups and downs. What truly matters is consistency. Even when progress feels invisible, your brain is quietly adapting in the background. Pause. Notice something important. This paragraph reflects your experience too. Listening is emotional. When you hear ideas that connect to your own life, comprehension becomes stronger. Now let's focus on speed adaptation. Read this sentence slowly. Improvement is rarely linear. Now say it naturally. Improvement's rarely linear. Hear how improvement blends into improvements. These small contractions make speech faster. Now imagine hearing an entire sentence like that at natural speed. Your brain must recognize patterns instantly. Let's move to a more dynamic situation. Imagine a casual conversation between two friends planning a weekend. Friend 1 says, "So, what are you thinking of doing this weekend?" Friend 2 replies, "I'm not completely sure yet. I was considering going hiking, but the weather forecast doesn't look very promising." Friend 1 responds, "Yeah, I saw that too. Maybe we could just grab dinner somewhere and catch up instead." Pause. What are they discussing? Weekend plans, weather concerns, alternative ideas. Now, focus on natural reductions. What are you becomes whatcha. Going to becomes gonna. Could just might sound like could just quickly blended. These patterns repeat constantly in spoken English. Another advanced technique I used during my 30-day journey was listening for tone shifts. For example, I thought it would be easy, but I was completely wrong. The word but signals a shift. Whenever you hear but, prepare for contrast. Let's practice contrast awareness. She studied hard for the exam, but she still felt nervous. Main idea, effort, yet nervousness. Contrast creates emotional depth in listening. Now I want to guide you through a more emotionally layered story. Last winter, I found myself feeling unusually unmotivated. The days were shorter, the weather was colder, and my energy seemed to disappear. Instead of ignoring the feeling, I decided to change my routine. I started waking up earlier, going for short walks, and limiting my screen time before bed. Slowly, my mood began to improve. The change wasn't immediate, but it was steady. By the time spring arrived, I felt like a different person. Pause. What changed? Routine adjustments, gradual improvement, seasonal shift. Now notice the rhythm of storytelling. Short sentences create clarity. Longer sentences build detail. When listening, sentence length also affects comprehension. Short sentences are easier. Long sentences require patience. So if you struggle with long sentences, practice dividing them into mental chunks. For example, although I was nervous at the beginning, I gradually became more confident as I gained experience. Chunk it like this. Although I was nervous at the beginning, I gradually became more confident as I gained experience. When you mentally separate long sentences into chunks, listening becomes manageable. Now let's simulate something closer to real podcast flow. Imagine the speaker continues naturally without pause. One of the biggest lessons I learned during those 30 days was that progress often feels invisible in the moment. Oh, there were mornings when I questioned whether all the listening practice was making any difference. Yet when I compared my comprehension at the end of the month to where I had started, the improvement was undeniable. What once sounded like noise now sounded like meaningful conversation. Pause. Notice the phrase, what once sounded like noise now sounded like meaningful conversation. That's transformation. Listening transforms from noise to clarity. Now I want you to think about your own listening journey. At the beginning, English may have sounded like fast, confusing noise, but slowly. Patterns emerge, phrases repeat, reductions become familiar, meaning becomes clearer. That transformation happens through exposure, and exposure requires time. Listening stamina also requires mental endurance. If your focus drops after 5 minutes, train it gradually. Next time, listen for 6 minutes, then 8, then 10. Build endurance slowly, just like physical exercise. You don't run a marathon on day 1. You train step by step. In the next part, we will move on into the final stage of this journey, where I'll guide you through a complete realistic listening session from start to finish, combining summary, prediction, shadowing, and reflection. But before we go there, recognize something important. You are not the same listener you were at the beginning of this lesson. Your awareness has grown. Your strategies are stronger, and your mindset is shifting. Listening is no longer mysterious. It is systematic, trainable, achievable. Take one slow breath and prepare for the final stage of our journey together. Now we are entering the final stage of this journey together. And in this part, I want to guide you through something complete, something that feels like a real listening session from beginning to end. Imagine this is your daily practice time. You are sitting comfortably, you are focused, and you are ready to train your listening in a structured way. We will go through 4 steps together. First, listening for general meaning, then listening for detail, then shadowing, and finally, reflection. Take a slow breath, and let's begin. Here is your full listening passage. Read it, as if you are hearing it naturally. Last Friday evening, I realized how much my listening skills had improved. I was sitting in a small cafe waiting for a friend to arrive when I overheard 2 people discussing their travel plans. A month ago, I probably would have understood only fragments of their conversation, but this time I could follow the story almost effortlessly. They were talking about booking flights, comparing hotel prices, and debating whether to rent a car or rely on public transportation. At one point, one of them mentioned that they had nearly missed their previous flight because they arrived at the airport too late. As I listened, I felt a quiet sense of pride. For the first time, English didn't sound like a blur of fast words. It sounded like a story unfolding naturally. Pause. Step 1. General meaning. What was happening? Someone was in a cafe, overheard a conversation, and realized their listening had improved. That's the core idea. Now, step 2. Listening for detail. What were the 2 people discussing? Flights, hotels, renting a car, missing a previous flight. Now, step 3. Shadowing practice. Take this sentence. They were talking about booking flights, comparing hotel prices, and debating whether to rent a car. Say it slowly. They were talking about booking flights, comparing hotel prices, and debating whether to rent a car. Now say it more naturally. They were talking about booking flights, comparing hotel prices, and debating whether to rent a car. Feel how prices and connects. Prices in. Shadowing builds rhythm recognition. Now step 4. Reflection. What emotion did the speaker feel? Pride. Quiet confidence. That emotional layer deepens comprehension. Now stretch your listening again with a slightly longer and more complex story. During the second week of my listening challenge, I faced an unexpected obstacle. I caught a mild cold, and for several days I felt tired and unfocused. Normally, I might have skipped my listening practice altogether. However, instead of stopping completely, I adjusted my routine. I chose shorter audio clips and reduced my practice time to 10 minutes. Even though it wasn't perfect, I maintained consistency. Looking back, I realized that those small sessions mattered more than I thought. They kept the habit alive. Pause. Main idea. Illness. Adaptation. Consistency. Now notice the structure. Problem. Adjustment. Lesson learned. When listening, always look for this pattern. Situation, challenge, response, result. This structure appears in many stories. Now let's practice prediction. I caught a mild cold. And for several days? What do you expect next? Maybe feeling tired, missing work, adjusting plans. Prediction activates your brain before the sentence finishes. That makes listening faster. Now let's simulate a more spontaneous conversational flow. Speaker 1 says, I can't believe how quickly this month passed. Speaker 2 responds, I know, right? It feels like we were just setting our goals for the year. Speaker 1 continues, exactly. I guess time really flies when you're busy. Pause. Even if spoken quickly, you catch the theme. Time passing, busy life, reflection. Notice natural phrases. I know, right? It feels like time really flies. These are common spoken expressions. If you expose yourself to everyday phrases repeatedly, your listening becomes automatic. Now I want to guide you through one final extended listening simulation. Imagine this as the final test of your 30-day journey. Take a breath. 30 days ago, I doubted whether consistent listening practice would truly make a difference. I had tried before and felt disappointed by slow progress. But this time, I approached it differently. Instead of overwhelming myself with long, complicated audio, I focused on small, manageable sessions. I listened actively, repeated sentences out loud, and reflected on what I understood. Some days were easier than others, but I refused to measure my improvement by perfection. Gradually, the noise turned into clarity. Fast speech became patterns. Unknown phrases became familiar expressions. By the end of the month, I realized that listening is not about talent. It is about patience, exposure, and trust in the process. Pause. Now answer silently. What changed over the 30 days? Mindset, structure, consistency. What was the key realization? Listening is trainable. Now let's shadow one final sentence together. Gradually. The noise turned into clarity. Slowly. Gradually. The noise turned into clarity. Naturally. Gradually, the noise turned into clarity. That sentence represents transformation from confusion to understanding. Now I want you to imagine yourself 1 month from today. You press play on an English podcast. You hear natural connected speech. You don't panic. You don't freeze. You follow the story. You understand most of it. And even when you miss a word, you stay calm. That calm confidence is the real Tao goal. Listening is not about controlling every sound. It's about trusting your ability to build meaning from context. And that ability grows with repetition, with patience, with daily effort. Before we move into the final reflection and closing stage of this journey, take a slow breath and recognize how much your awareness has expanded. You now understand connected speech, reductions, prediction, chunking, tone shifts, structure, emotional context. You have the tools. Now you simply need consistency. Now we've reached the final stage of this journey together. And I want this last part to feel calm, honest, and empowering. Take a slow breath with me. If you think back to the beginning of this lesson, maybe English listening felt heavy, overwhelming, maybe even frustrating. But now, you understand something deeper. Listening is not random. It is not magic. It is not talent. It is training. 30 days may not make you perfect, but 30 days of focused, unstructured listening can completely change your relationship with English. When I completed my own 30-day listening challenge, the biggest difference was not just comprehension, it was confidence. Confidence when hearing fast speech. Confidence when listening without subtitles. Confidence when missing a word but continuing calmly. And that confidence made everything else easier. Now I want you to imagine your own 30-day transformation clearly. On day 1, you choose short, chichar simple audio. You listen for the general idea. You repeat 1 or 2 sentences. You summarize in your own words. You don't judge yourself. You simply practice. On day 7, you notice that some phrases sound familiar. You begin recognizing reductions automatically. Gonna, wanna, gotta. You don't need to think about them anymore. On day 15, your listening stamina improves. 5 minutes feels easy. 10 minutes feels possible. You begin predicting ideas before sentences finish. On day 20, you feel less afraid of fast speakers. You focus on keywords. You follow structure. On day 30, something quiet but powerful happens. English stops sounding like noise. It starts sounding like meaning, and that shift changes everything. Now let's do one final deep listening reflection together. I'm going to share one last story, and I want you to listen for structure, tone, emotion, and meaning. Take a breath. On the final evening of my listening challenge, I decided to test myself one last time. I chose a podcast episode that I had once considered too difficult. I pressed play, expecting to struggle. But as the speaker began, I realized something surprising. I wasn't straining to catch every word. I wasn't translating in my head. Instead, I was following the ideas naturally. There were still moments when I missed small details, but they didn't stop me. I stayed with the conversation. And when the episode ended, I smiled quietly to myself. I hadn't become perfect, but I had become capable. Pause. What is the emotional message? Growth, quiet achievement, confidence. Now reflect on that final sentence. I hadn't become perfect, but I had become capable. That is the true goal of listening practice, not perfection, capability. Capability means you can handle real English. Capability means you don't give up when it feels fast. Capability means you trust your brain, and your brain is powerful. It adapts through repetition. It recognizes patterns. It strengthens with exposure. If you continue practicing beyond 30 days, imagine where you could be in 90 days, in 6 months, in 1 year. Listening improves exponentially with time, but only if you stay consistent. So here is your simple commitment moving forward. Every day, listen actively for at least 15 minutes. Choose one consistent source. Repeat sentences. Notice connected speech. Summarize the main idea. Stay calm when you miss words. And most importantly, trust the process. Let's do one final shadowing sentence together. Listening is not about catching every word. It's about understanding the message. Say it slowly. Listening is not about catching every word. It's about understanding the message. Now say it naturally. Listening's not about catching every word. It's about understanding the message. Feel the rhythm. Feel the flow. That flow is no longer foreign to you. It is becoming familiar. Before we finish, I want you to close your eyes for just a moment. Picture yourself 1 month from now. You press play on an English podcast. You smile. You understand. You feel steady. That future version of you is built from small daily practice starting today. And remember, you don't need long study sessions. You need consistency. You don't need pressure. You need patience. You don't need perfection. You need progress. If you follow the methods we explored together, listening for general meaning, noticing reductions, shadowing, predicting, summarizing, reflecting, you will improve, not instantly, but steadily. And steady improvement is powerful. I'm proud of you for staying until the end of this journey. Keep practicing, keep listening, keep believing in your progress. And remember, you are not trying to become perfect. You are becoming capable. Before we completely finish this journey together, I want to leave you with something practical, something grounded, something you can begin using immediately without feeling overwhelmed. Listening improvement is not built in one dramatic moment. It is built in quiet, ordinary days. So let's imagine your next 7 days in detail. Tomorrow morning, you wake up. You choose one short podcast episode, maybe 5 minutes long. Something simple. Everyday conversation. You press play. You listen once, fully focused. You don't stop. You don't rewind. You don't judge yourself. When it ends, you pause. And you ask yourself one simple question. What was the main idea? You answer out loud, even if your grammar isn't perfect. Then you listen again. This time, you pay attention to sound. Maybe you notice how did you sounds like did ya. Maybe you hear how going to becomes gonna. You replay one sentence and you repeat it softly, not perfectly, just naturally. That is day 1. On day 2, you listen to the same episode again, but now you focus on confidence. You stay calm even if you miss a detail. You notice that some phrases already feel familiar. On day 3, you increase difficulty slightly, maybe a 6-minute episode. You listen for on structure, beginning, middle, end, problem, solution, reflection. Your brain begins organizing what it hears. On day 4, you challenge yourself with shadowing. Take one longer sentence. Even though I was nervous at first, I gradually became more confident as the conversation continued. Say it slowly. Even though I was nervous at first, I gradually became more confident as the conversation continued. Now say it naturally. Even though I was nervous at first, I gradually became more confident as the conversation continued. You feel how the rhythm carries you forward. On day 5, you practice listening without subtitles. You trust your ears. Even if you understand only 70%, you keep going. Because 70% is progress. On day 6, you summarize again. Choose a short story. Listen once. Then say 3 sentences about it. Not perfect. Just clear. On day 7, you reflect. You ask yourself, what feels easier than last week? Are reductions more familiar? Is fast speech less frightening? Can you follow longer ideas? Even small improvements count. Now let's strengthen one final listening muscle together. Endurance. Read this extended paragraph as if you are hearing it without pause. Over time, I realized that listening is less about decoding every sound and more about recognizing patterns. The more I exposed myself to natural English, the more predictable it became. I began to anticipate transitions, understand emotional tone, and identify familiar expressions without conscious effort. What once felt overwhelming gradually turned into something manageable. The key was not intensity, but consistency. Each small session built on the previous one, creating steady progress that only became visible when I looked back. Pause. That paragraph contains everything: exposure, pattern recognition, emotional awareness, consistency, reflection. Now listen to this sentence carefully. Each small session built on the previous one. That is how progress works. Not in isolation, but in accumulation. Listening improvement is cumulative. Every minute matters, even when it doesn't feel dramatic. And here is something deeply important. Some days will feel difficult. Some days your mind will feel distracted. Some days you will think you are not improving, but your brain is adapting quietly. Neural connections strengthen with repetition. Sound patterns become familiar. Processing speed increases. Even when you don't notice it immediately, trust that invisible work. Now I want to guide you through one final awareness exercise. Read this sentence slowly. I used to feel lost when I heard fast English, but now I stay calm and focus on the meaning. Pause. Now imagine that sentence describing you. Used to feel lost. Now stay calm. That transformation is possible. It doesn't require talent. It requires daily contact with English, daily exposure, daily patience, daily reflection. If you continue listening every day, even just 15 minutes, imagine the compounding effect over 3 months, over 6 months, over a year. Listening becomes natural. Understanding becomes automatic. Confidence shall become steady. And once listening improves, speaking improves too, because when your ears are trained, your mouth follows. When you recognize natural rhythm, your speech becomes smoother. When you hear reductions clearly, you begin using them naturally. Listening is the foundation. Build the foundation, and everything else becomes stronger. Right now, you have clarity, you understand the methods, you have practical steps, you have guided practice experience, you have awareness of common mistakes, you have strategies for accents, speed, stamina, and structure. All that remains is action, small, daily, consistent action. Imagine pressing play tomorrow, not with fear, but with curiosity. Curiosity transforms frustration into growth, and growth transforms noise into meaning. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Truly. It means a lot that you stayed all the way through this journey. If you followed along carefully, if you practiced the shadowing sentences, if you paused, and reflected, then you didn't just watch a lesson. You trained your listening, and that matters. Remember, improvement in English doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It happens quietly, through small daily actions, through patience, through showing up even on the days when progress feels invisible. If today's session helped you understand listening more clearly, then keep going. Don't stop at 30 days. Let this be the beginning of a longer habit. Come back to these techniques. Listen. Actively summarize. Notice connected speech. Trust your brain. And most importantly, be kind to yourself during the process. Your progress is real, even if it feels slow. I'm proud of the effort you're making, and I'm excited for the improvement that's waiting for you in the weeks ahead. Keep listening, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next lesson.